our mission is to help you with your mission.
That's
It
right.
doesn't say our mission is to do your mission for you. It says our mission is to help you with your mission.
Kia ora, welcome to Dealing Hope. So glad you could join again for another episode of insightful and intriguing conversations with the guests that I have the privilege of meeting. In this particular episode, I'll be talking with Ole Pedersen, who is the manager for Hope Channel New Zealand. Take note of the focus that he has on communication of the gospel through media, and how that is looking right now and what could be possibilities going forward. So be blessed with this conversation with Ole Pedersen. Ole, it's really good to have you back on Dealing Hope. Last year we caught up in the middle of one lockdown and here we are kind of on the edge of hopefully moving totally out of another lockdown. But how are you doing?
Well, don't jinx it, Eddie. Don't jinx it. But thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to catch up with you again. And as you said, it's been a long and extended period of lockdown. Yeah, and it's had its challenges, that's for sure.
Well, why don't we get right into it and just share some of the highlights from 2021 for you as the leader for Hope Channel New Zealand.
Listen, I think the biggest highlight for 2021 is the fact that God has blessed us all the way through the year, and despite the challenges that we have faced, I mean, we've had three periods of lockdowns in a shorter or longer period, and the last one here lasting almost 4.5 months. God has blessed, and He's been gracious and good, and we've been on air all the way through. And that's just a blessing in itself, and we can only praise Him for that.
Yes.
And the ministry, of course, then reaches people around the country as they also faces the challenges of everyday life in a COVID world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So if you were to say these are the highlights, or this is the highlight, what would that be?
One would be our Go Healthy for Good project. I think most of your listeners and viewers will be aware of Go Healthy for Good. It's a program that has been on air for must be up to 10 years now, and originally developed in the US.
That's right.
With Meredith McKibben, our very own Kiwi doctor from down in the Waikato.
Back home.
That definitely would be the highlight for this year. That's for sure. We when Nerida moved to New Zealand from the US permanently, we started having a conversation about what's going to happen with Go Healthy for Good, and together with Brad Kemp from Adventist Media in Sydney, we started negotiation with Hope Channel International about taking over the branding and the brand itself, Go Healthy for Good brand, and produce a program series here in New Zealand and in Australia instead. And we're quite a way down the track of trying to make that happen when suddenly the borders closed again. As you remember, there was a period of time when you could travel to Australia, but when that sort of started becoming a problem again,
we were away. It was so easy.
Yeah, exactly. But when that became a problem again, we had to sort of think about how do we manage a project like this here when we've got part of the team in Australia, part of the team in New Zealand, and we're doing it as a joint venture between Adventist Media and ourselves. So in the end, we decided to split it up and do part production here in New Zealand. So everything that included Dr. Nerida would be filmed in New Zealand. So we wouldn't have any issues around travel, getting in and out and so forth. And components that we could do without Nerida, so for example, exercise, testimonies, you got the cooking segments and so forth, they could all be filmed in Australia as separate segments for it. And then we'll tie everything together with Nerida here in New Zealand. The technical term for that is glue. You put it all together and it snaps. Yeah, that was a project in its own right, and it has been challenging.
Yes.
To make it happen, of course, because of all the changes, circumstances. And the biggest challenge really was when we hit August and we were locked down again here in especially here in Auckland. Closed borders and nobody could travel. That meant that we actually could not finish the last episodes of the series.
Okay.
Originally, we wanted to do 13.
Yes.
We got enough interviews with experts to do 16 episodes, so we decided, well, let's do 16 episodes. We ended up getting 11 completed before everything got shut down, and the last 5 we're then having to do in January and early February, and then we'll broadcast them in 2022. But yeah, it's a bit of a, it's the kind of things that gets thrown at you.
Yes.
And then you have to work your way around it.
I really like the way you've answered this question, because you've really focused on the highlight is what God has done and how God has brought us through. Again, challenges that we did not see, but even had us prepared for that challenge even before we knew it was going to happen. And through it all, he was there. I'd like to take you down a little sidetrack, I guess, from what I had alluded to earlier, because I think it's an important point. So I said to you, what is a highlight? And we start talking about a health program. And in some, well, maybe many people's minds, it's, well, why aren't we preaching? Why aren't we out there telling people about a doctrine or the second coming, which we are looking forward so much to? And again, it raises in my mind, and I think it's a point worth making again, the approach that Hope Channel is taking in order for it to be a channel that reaches as many people as possible outside of Christianity. So I've heard you say this so well, and I'd love for you to just share that philosophy again that underpins and lies behind what Hope Channel does.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a question that often gets thrown at us, in the leadership of the church, leadership of media, because media is part of the mission. And I understand that very, very well. I understand that people have a passion for sharing last day messages, and they are important. Absolutely, God has said, go and share the 3 angels' messages. Sometimes, though, I wonder if we understand the context in which we have to share, and that's why sometimes we may get sidetracked on how do we actually reach the people that we are meant to be connecting with on an everyday basis. I like to look at Hope Channel. Hope Channel really, the purpose of Hope Channel is to open doors, not to shut them. And the best way to shut a door is by going and telling somebody what they're doing wrong, as the first course of interaction. How do you like it when somebody comes to you and the first thing they say to you, Eddie, you're doing this wrong? You know what I mean? You immediately get on the defensive, and the problem with that is, of course, it closes your ears and it blocks your heart from hearing what you really should be hearing. And I know this from my own life. When I look at my own life, there are things that I regret from my past, where I treated people in such a way that it actually shut the door for me to be ever able to reach them. And it's because I was young and impulsive and insensitive to how to do mission. And Yeah, as I've grown older, I've probably learned a few things.
I really like that image of the door. I think
Mm,
it makes a lot of sense. And this idea of Hope Channel is wanting to open doors, not shut doors or keep doors open.
mm,
Because really that is a picture of the process of evangelism, the journey of leading somebody to Christ, the walk of being alongside somebody as they come closer to the cross and then move beyond them.
yeah. You asked about the health, why do we do health programs?
Good.
Instead of, say, constantly bombarding people with prophecy, for example, right? Now, prophecy is important, and that you also find that on
Absolutely.
Hope Channel.
Yes.
However, we recognize that in order to deal with people's challenges in their life, you've got to get to know them, number one. But number two, if you don't deal with their immediate issue, there's no way they're going to listen to anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of Maslow, but Maslow's hierarchy, because sometimes we've got to think a little bit like that, even in our evangelism. If you understand Maslow's hierarchy, it talks about until you've solved the bottom layer, you can't move to the next. And the bottom one is pure survival. If somebody is hungry, physically hungry, or dying from thirst, what good is it to give him a book to read?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. About how you can find water somewhere else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or how you can buy water at the local supermarket, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Give them the water first, and then satisfy that, and then you can start talking about the next level and the next
really trying to make that connection with that person and find what is it that's going to connect. Have that person think, okay, I'll listen a little bit longer, I'll stay on the channel a bit longer. I might even open the door. So let me dig a little bit deeper here then, Ole. When we are thinking about this conversation that you and I have had many times, broadcast and digital. And I hope you've noticed that I haven't said broadcast versus digital, but broadcast and digital. But it's a real thing. The digital revolution is upon us. It's growing, depending who you talk to, exponentially by the second or the hour or the day. But as the leader of Hope Channel New Zealand, which is a broadcast channel on free to air, yeah. So what are you thinking? Where is it at in your when you look at this space?
Well, that's interesting, because when we use the word digital, depending on who you talk to, you might get different interpretations. So let me put it back to you and say we already do digital.
True.
Because our broadcast is a digital signal.
Yes.
Yes, in the past it was an analog signal.
Yes.
However, when people start using the term digital, they are talking about something slightly different. They're talking about the way it arrives at your end.
Yes.
And digital here is, instead of using a TV, you often associate digital with another means of reception.
Yes.
Whether that being a telephone, a smartphone, or whether it's a tablet or a laptop computer, or even your home computer for that matter. And nowadays, you'll be hard challenged to find a TV that's not a smart TV.
That's right.
Which can also do what the world would like to call a digital.
Yeah, it's a TV that has apps now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is something that we need to be mindful of. I want to say, to start with, though, that the predictions that were made about 5-7 years ago that TV would be dead in the 2021, it still hasn't come through, because way over 90% of people are still watching TV as a means of getting information in. What they have done, though, is they've supplemented it with a lot of other content that you now get online. So viewing time, if you look back in the 1960s, 1970s, you'd say that people would view television for 4 hours, right? Or for 3 hours or per day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may have gone from 3 hours per day in the 1970s, and I have no statistics to back this up, so I'm just using it as illustration. It might have gone from 3 hours in the 1970s to 2 hours in 2021. But in the meantime, the digital side of it has gone from nothing to 2 or 3 hours. So your overall consumption has not gone down; it's actually just increased. So they're complementing each other more than anything at the moment. So yeah.
So it's a both and.
It is a both and, absolutely. The biggest challenge around digital really is about how do you capture somebody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at YouTube, for example, there's more content being put on YouTube every single minute,
yes,
than what you can watch in an hour, or actually what you can watch in a day. It is, if you had to watch all the new content that gets put up, it will take you years just to watch one day's worth of upload. I mean, it's like there's so much that comes all the time.
Yes.
And how do we compete in a market that is being absolutely bombarded and saturated in the digital space? That's the real challenge we have as a church. Many people are saying that it's just a question of putting content out there. You put content out there and you'll have 24 viewers. That's, depending on who you are, you can be happy about it or you'll be very disappointed about it. The challenge we have as a church is that we don't have the name or the branding that will carry it. Let me give you a concrete example. The number one person that has the most subscribers on the top 3 social media platforms is Cristiano Ronaldo. He's a football player, and he has a following of over 400 million people. Just on the top 3, and that's not counting some of the lesser known ones, but just on the top 3, he has way over 400 million followers. Now, as a church, how do we create 400 million followers? We are not a football player, we're not a name, we're not a star. When you look through it, all the successful YouTubers are people, they are not organizations. And that's the challenge that we face as a church. How do we compete in that space when it comes to digital? That's not to say that we should not be there. We just need to find ways of sharing that in such a way that it becomes spread far enough around the world.
I read an interesting article over the weekend, and the title said, "The church is losing the content creation race."
Mm-hmm.
And it was referring to the social media spaces and this whole idea that we have to create content. We have to create content. And like you say, you'll never be able to create content to compete, but you need to be able to have a distinct point of difference that would draw people to what you are offering, so that your message would be compelling and keep people there to a place where they become engaged and willing to pursue the message, and especially, as you say, so that they meet the person, Jesus, who really is the message whose message we are sharing. And so I am fascinated by that. And you ran a conference earlier this year, and we had a couple of providers come through and present. And it was interesting, this discussion around the crossover time when we will cross over to full digital. And I guess really in what I'm hearing from you, maybe that's not really the right question or the discussion we want to be in order to be effective, but really it's understanding our place as a communicator of the gospel, how we use these tools to do that effectively, and not be sucked into trying to be a Facebook or to be a Christian. I didn't quite get his name.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah. So interesting.
It's a real conundrum, because as a Christian church and as a Christian community, it is very, very easy to end up in this space where we, and to be honest, I've been there in the past, and I know there are lots of people out there that probably are still sitting in this space that views evangelism and sharing the gospel as something that I pay others to do. So in other words, by returning my tithe and giving my offerings, I've done my duty when it comes to the spreading of the gospel. Because I'm not good at going and talking to people about my faith.
Yeah,
therefore I pay to others to do it.
Yeah, I think it's called outsourcing.
Is it called outsourcing? That's the modern term.
And I know I say that, and I know I say that in jest, but I'm as guilty of that and have to keep reminding myself, well, no, I am the messenger. I'm not to pay somebody to be the messenger.
No, but as a church, that is a challenge that we are faced with, because what we will do then is we will use media, and I'm saying media now as encompassing both what we do from a broadcast perspective, but also what we do from a digital perspective. We use media as a crutch for us not doing what we should be doing personally. In other words, let Hope Channel TV deal with the evangelism and reaching the people, and then I'll sit in the church and wait for somebody to walk through the door. And praise God, people do walk through the door. That's just reality. However, my question is, how many more would do it if we took a personal responsibility for also being part of that sharing? So instead of, as our motto is from a Hope Channel perspective, our motto when it comes to our interaction with local church and with local church members is very clear. It's really, really clear, Our mission is to help you with your mission.
That's
it
right.
doesn't say our mission is to do your mission for you, or on behalf of you, or instead of you. It says our mission is to help you with your mission. Now, what is my mission as an individual?
So, Ole, let me take that then, because that is so true what you're saying, and you've been consistent with that message. The local church. The local church now has to face the reality that they need to find ways for the church to fellowship in different ways and to worship in different ways, and also to grow the church spiritually in different ways, as well as reach out evangelistically.
That's right.
I think this is a different discussion or different agenda item for church boards, as they need to, and I know this at my church, we've had several conversations over the years, well, over the last 2 years, about, so what does our local church media communications strategy look like? Would you have any thoughts, tips, suggestions for a local church? And just before you answer that, because one of the things you did last year is you saw the need and immediately jumped right there at the beginning of that first lockdown and set up Hope Church. And so there's a great example, and I'm sure that'll be one of your suggestions. But yeah, any other thoughts and then what a local church could do going forward, where we need to be somehow online or have a connection that's media related more than we had in the past?
Yeah, I think the first thing to probably highlight is that online or TV, digital broadcast or things like that can never replace a local church.
Amen.
A local church is a community of people.
Yes.
And as much as it's interesting to sit and do what we do here, talk on a screen,
yes,
true connection doesn't happen unless you're in the same room as somebody. Or put it differently, I wonder what your marriage would look like if you'd spent 20 years just Zooming your wife. You know, and yet we think we can do church that way. You know what I mean? Zoom is great, but it is only a small picture of the reality in which you operate.
That's right.
So if you take the marriage perspective, you know, it's not until you are sitting in the sofa together and you have to deal with the tough questions of the day and you're actually watching each other that you can have those questions and you can deal with it. Zoom can't do that, and church online can't do that. Watching church every week just on the TV screen is not church at the end of the day. Yeah. It's part of it, but it is not the whole. You have to have a personal interaction with people. It's the same way as with your relationship with Christ. You can't have a relationship with Christ if it's not personal. You know, even though you might look at it in the way that your relationship with God is almost like a Zoom relationship without a screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But reality is, church is a group of individuals. It's people. And if you don't interact with people on a personal level, then it becomes, it's not church. It's just not. And I think as a church community, not just in New Zealand, but worldwide, in these current situations that we're in, we certainly have to find different ways of doing that. The question is, will church in 2022 and 23 convert from being a place where you have 300 people gathering to having small groups of 25, 35, 45 people gathering in small places? To be honest with you, that is far more church than anything else. Yeah. You look back to the first century, what did people do? They gathered in the local synagogue, and there was a local synagogue in every little place.
Yes.
Around the empire, you know, where there were Christians or Jews. And I think sometimes or somehow we have missed that idea of more, less is more.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Less people are still more churches, right? In terms of where you have them.
So you're saying, in terms of the thinking that the local church has, that they may consider the possibility of strengthening that small group ministry.
Absolutely.
And allowing for it to take place more regularly than we may have hoped, or
absolutely
different way.
Absolutely. I think, you know, local churches, and I can look at my own church family. I go to the Manor Park Church, which geographically when you look at where people come from, geographically covers an area from the top of the Afito Peninsula, all the way down to Port Waikato, all the way down to Huntly almost,
Yeah.
all the way over to Miranda and Kaiawa, all of Ararimu, Pukekohe, Karaka, you know, it is a massive
you're talking
geographical area, right?
A region of Auckland here, just because we have listeners who won't have any clue about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just looking at that southern part of Auckland into the Waikato. And geographically, you're talking distance of up to 50 kilometers from where the church building is. There's nothing that says you can't have satellite churches in these small communities around the place, and then have the and bear with me now when I use this term, it's in no ways reflective of any prophetic statements or anything, but you have the mother church, you know, as a central focal point where you gather from time to time to bring everybody in, but you grow these small churches, church communities or small gatherings around in the regions to meet on their own, and then become a real influence in their local community. And that's the important piece, you know. How do you create that local interaction where you live, rather than you travel from some distant place to a church that is 50 kilometers away, and that's where you live your Christian life, but when you go back into your local community, there's nothing.
So I'm hearing you talk here also about the type of technology that's involved with this and investment that the church may need to consider. So that's another area, I guess, alongside this thinking of being spread out and scattered as groups, and having time when you do come together to.
From a mission perspective, the modern technology we have now, from a mission perspective, is really, it's a huge opportunity, absolutely huge opportunity. I can sit on my social media pages and share with people things in my friend group. And if I did a little bit of maths, you know, where we said, you know, just imagine that everybody, you know, if you have a church community of 100 people and everybody had 5 unique Facebook friends and they shared something, each one of them shared it. Yes. Well, that's 500 people reached just like that.
Yeah.
Right. What if we had 10,000 people, right, that did the same? That's 50,000 people reached just like that, with a message. And again, you know, we have to be very clear on what we do. When we're mass distributing, let's do stuff that encourages people to explore more and encourage them to be willing to discover something new that they may not have before. And that's as I said earlier, it's about opening doors and opportunities, and then walk in and then deal with it.
Absolutely. And that's a great
plenty of opportunities on the digital side. There really is, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you have, so easy to share. You go on, and Hope Channel has got loads and loads of stuff that you can simply share a link, and then you can share it with somebody who needs it. And we post stuff every single day, so there's always something that is worth sharing.
And Ole, I'll make sure that we add all those links and directions for people to this episode, so that people can do that. Well, thank you, Ole. I think this is a good place to wrap up, where you've again brought us back to where we started with this image of the open door. And I really believe that is the task and purpose, not only of Hope Channel, but for us as Adventists in our mission of sharing God's love to people, that we be about opening doors for the love of Christ to enter and transform them and to join in the hope that we have. So blessings to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And have a great break.
Thank you very much. You too, Eddie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.